Welcome to the Meeple Surf Aftershow. This is episode 99. We've been talking about selling out and moving on in the industry. We have our hosts for today, Daryl Andrews and Nate Indiegogo, Nate Murray, and
Nate Murray. Yeah, how we doing?
we're doing great. I think we're all doing great. Is everybody doing great?
Yeah,
I'm doing great.
This is why I typically don't do the intro.
Oh, okay.
well, I think you did great, and I think we had a great episode. Talking about selling out, we were a little tongue in cheek with stuff, but I think we actually did touch on some examples strategically and just life experience wise of selling out. What some people call selling out, but also some examples of doing that strategically and what it means to transition. We didn't talk about it in the show, but I mean, I think this is a perfect example. Nate, you worked with a publisher. Now you're actually helping come alongside lots of publishers. So you have a transition story there, and maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm sure I'm way better known by the 8 people that know me as kind of being the product manager for IDW Games. And this opportunity with Indiegogo came up, and it was something that, much like Travis said, was too good to pass up. And so I made the move essentially for a couple of reasons. One was I felt that there was going to be a time where I had to leave IDW, and that was just because of the structure of the company. I was not an owner. I was an employee. I was very well compensated for my time. They treated me very well. Jerry Bennington, the VP there, is one of my favorite humans, and working with him was awesome, but I was always going to be working for him as long as I stayed there. And so the reality was exit strategy was either going to be to start my own publishing company, which I didn't feel was right as a first exit from IDW, to leave my boss and then immediately compete with him. I felt like there should probably be some time before that, out of respect, especially because I've been in sales in this kind of business a long time, and you leave your book with where you built the book. So I left Jerry all my contacts, and Daryl being one of them. Obviously, we're very good friends, and he does great work for IDW now. And so I didn't want to part with any of that. Wanted there to be dead space. And then being the crowdfunding manager and in crowdfunding for the last 7 years, there was a lot of stuff I didn't like with where crowdfunding was going, and I thought that if I had the opportunity to affect it with Indiegogo, that would be super exciting. So it was the perfect opportunity, the perfect time. I would have maybe liked to do another year at IDW, to be fair, to finish some of my draft class that is coming into the company right now, because there's a lot. When you sign games, they don't get seen for a year or maybe more, and this year's game crop is just excellent. And I felt like my hands were on it a lot, but it's in great hands. Spencer, Brian, Kyle, Daryl, they're going to do better than I would. So it's all fine, but it was a big change. It's hard to leave something you love and take that leap, but for the right thing, you have to keep moving. And that's the biggest thing, is you can't get stagnant. You can't, as a designer, be reliant on the same game that got you somewhere. You have to learn new mechanics, learn where the industry's going. And the same thing with your career. You can't just accept that you'll show up to work every day and everything will be okay, because that's putting too much of your own power in someone else's hands. And that's not really how I've ever lived my life.
Totally. Well, kind of along those lines then, I know, John, you made a pretty massive transition from working and doing games on the side to doing it full time now. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition? Because a lot of people say like that's the dream. That's that's what they're trying to do. But I mean, there's some good moments to that, and there's some tough moments. Can you kind of walk us through a little bit of that transition?
Oh, absolutely. I went from working a roughly 60-hour a week job, and then doing game design in my spare time, to doing. I work almost as long hours now doing game design, because I know that doing it full time, I have to make sure that I have releases, coming up in order almost every year, and to keep it where I continue to do it full time, I have to have a certain amount of big box games come out every year and some smaller games. And you always hope for the evergreen games, but you never know, on each title, if it's going to sell 1,000 or if it's going to sell 5,000 or if it's going to sell for years. So it takes a lot of time and you have to plant a lot of seeds to make sure that, when it's time to harvest, that it's a good harvest. So a lot of it's, just been trying to build those relationships, use my time to, meet people in the industry in conventions. I don't do a ton of pitching at conventions. And if I do, I always, make sure to set up the meetings way ahead of time. I try to spend more of the time, just getting to know people and establish good relationships there.
Yeah, I think both guests were mentioning how much being like a human matters. And I hammer this a lot, but so many designers walk up and they just see you as their potential to their $1 billion game, and they don't treat you as a human. So I think a good tip is like, see what you can do to help someone out who's in the industry instead of always asking for tips. Like I see a lot in beginner places and beginner marketing forums and all these places is people come in, they go, everyone look at my project and give me notes. And then you can look at the history of what this person's ever said. Project, they've never helped anyone. It's only take. And that's super noticeable when you act like that. So, I mean, one of the first things Daryl did to begin our relationship was pass me off a flask of scotch when I desperately needed it. To do a favor for someone. But it can be a bottle of water or a mint or honestly, hey, before we start this pitch, do you want to take a minute to breathe? Like, just be human. I think like that was a really good note what Travis was saying. Like, it's just not all business. We're all people out here working, hard for things we love, and we work too hard.
Mm-hmm. I mean, overall, it's blown me away the last few years how generous everybody in the industry is. But I had somebody that's well known in the industry tell me, I was talking to them about a collaboration, and they said that I don't do anything for anybody that doesn't give me more out of the relationship than what I put into it. And I was like, that's the exact opposite of what I want to establish and what I want. Like that's not an equation that works out in the long term if everybody operated that way, where they only do deals or work with people where they
get overpaid.
Yeah.
That's an amazing pitch.
Yeah. How would you like to do all the work for me and then share the glory?
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I mean, I know one example as well that something that I'd like to focus on when I was kind of setting my goals for the year was getting more involved with games on Reddit. And I know John is really involved there. And the advice I remember you giving kind of fits this as well. Like, just join and just be involved, just be a human, just help people out, be part of the discussion. And so that's what, one thing that I want to start doing is just be involved. And then if down the road, there's opportunities where people are open to play testing something or giving feedback, then I've built up that credit, that social credit of like, oh, that's that guy who helped me, those multiple times or was just part of the discussion and shared some advice, things like that. And I think that the industry in general is very generous, like John's saying. There's a lot of people that are willing to offer advice or support to play test each other's stuff, but there's still always those bad apples that are just really sucking the life out of, or just using people.
And
that's
it's
frustrating.
not, I would say most of the case, it's not bad apples. It's misinformed apples, right? It's just like, you don't know, you're like overexcited. You're a retired nautical engineer or something. And you've been developing your game for 10 years and that's all you think about. And like, all these people are doing these things. All these people are humans. And so like, just remember that. But what drives me nuts is people not giving back to the community. Like, especially when you're new, don't come in with what Travis said, especially was my game's the next new innovative thing. It's like, have you researched it? Because have you really dug in? Can I name 5 games that your game is not as good as? Like, no. Know your numbers before you come to the table, and then know your people too. So I think that's important. I think speaking of like sharing and collaboration, Daryl, you do a huge amount of co-design. How are those relationships formed for people who are maybe more looking to get into something like that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I can use John as an example. I was just reminiscing about how I forget what episode it was, but I think it was like 4 or 5 that John was on one of our first episodes of Meeple Syrup. Here we are at 99, and he's now a regular go-to person that we call on for co-hosting and different things. I've been to his house, he's been to my house. You know, we visit each other at conventions, and it all actually just started because it was like, hey, you made a cool game. You know, are you willing to come on our show and share a little bit of your story, share some advice? And even the motivation behind this show was just like, how could we, you know, elevate and point out other designers and other industry folk and give them a little bit of a platform? Because originally what we were thinking, wow, like nobody actually knows the designers, they just know the reviewers. So how could we even like spend a little bit of our energy and actually like point out all these amazing designers and creators and people in the industry that are kind of in the background? And this show alone has opened so many of those doors for me for co-design, because I'm really just doing this show to get to know people and to encourage the industry. And because I'm giving and it's not really a take, I get to meet really cool people. And so I, over the years, I've gotten to know John, and even John and I have a few co-designs that are in the pipeline, some stuff that we're tinkering away at and still trying to, find its place. But the cool part is it all started because of this show, of just inviting him on as a guest.
Nice. Smart. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and that's you're giving back and you're getting, and then it just grows organically. But I think the thing is, it takes 10 years to be an overnight sensation, right? That's it. All of a sudden your name is on something huge, but people aren't seeing the trail of tears that is behind that huge project, and that's important to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dead of Winter definitely wasn't the first thing that I designed. It was just the first thing I designed that people really know about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious. We talked a little bit about kind of like this whole like companies combining and partnering and buying each other, and this, our title was Selling Out. I'm curious what we think and feel with kind of this trend of companies selling to each other and being bought. I mean, the classic, we didn't talk about it, but Asmodee, I mean, that's a huge topic on selling out, and people selling either just the rights to their most popular game. I mean, we've seen examples like Catan or Spot It, or then even whole divisions like Days of Wonder or Fantasy Flight going to Asmodee. I mean,
it's a really weird feeling because, I mean, Dead of Winter has been the part of 2 different purchases now.
Right.
Yeah. Plaid Hat was bought by F to Z 2 years ago, and then last year F to Z was bought by Asmodee. So it's really weird, especially because every one of those buyouts brings a huge change of culture, and a huge change in the way that everything's done.
Sure.
But I think as a designer, it's better for me because it means it's wider distribution, and theoretically their price point for printing should be down because they're a bigger company ordering bigger volumes. So hopefully their profits are a little bit more, and because we usually get paid as a percentage of the profits, it's better for everybody. But
right,
as a designer, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I do think there's a little bit of a con, especially for the little guy, the designers that are still trying to make a name. I mean, I can say for myself, like, I was always trying to crack meetings, and I thankfully did get a lot of meetings with bigger publishers, but a lot of people, it's difficult to get, even an appointment with some of these larger companies. And then even when you do, you're kind of an unproven commodity. I can say, like, for example, the Walled City, my first game, it got very far with a major publisher, and at the end of the day, they returned it and said, we liked it just as much as another game, but we had one spot. We had to choose between 2 games, and your game got bumped by a Kramer Kiesling game. Sorry, like, their name's going to sell better than yours. And it was like, I respect that. I was actually just excited to be in the same conversation. But at the same time, if these companies keep combining and there's fewer and fewer of these middle companies, it's tough. It's tough for designers to maybe even get a meeting or get notice until you crack in and get a few.
Yeah, that's fair, and I would say the trend will continue. I see there being 3 or 4 huge players in a few years, and then a bunch of straight boutique one product guys or girls, ladies, people. But yeah, it's gonna the middle is gonna shrink. I don't know where else we've seen that before, shrinking middle class of product, but it's coming to gaming for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
What before we go too far, I gotta ask this. Obviously, we have a crowdfunding expert with us. Some people see the whole idea of crowdfunding as selling out instead of doing it the real way of publishing and going through the conventional, traditional distribution model. We got to ask you, Nate, what would you counter that person? How would you respond to people that either designers that are like, I don't want my game with a crowdfunding company, or even with publishers that are saying like, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? You know, might as well get some of that advice while you're here.
So yeah, obviously crowdfunding has changed over the years. I've been watching it since the first sites went live, and it used to be people coming with an idea and other people helping make that idea come true. And it has since evolved, like a lot of things do, where, you know, it caught the attention of bigger publishers, and they've begun to use it more as a pre-order vehicle and as a marketing vehicle. It's similar to Facebook or Twitter. Crowdfunding is another social media platform. That's really all it is. So Facebook in the old days and Twitter in the old days was we talked to each other. And now my Facebook feed is full of advertisements. And my Twitter feed is certainly, I don't follow anyone that's non-industry or commercial on Twitter. And it's interesting how it's evolving, but it makes sense if you think about it. This is a way for consumers to talk to a brand directly and talk to that brand before they get a product, with their dollars as the game is made, instead of seeing something announced and just hoping it's good and maybe watching a review and buying the product. So it's good and bad, right? Like, I don't like going on, and I hope I can help with that. And as far as the valuation of what should come in a game at what price point, I think some of these mega projects that deliver so much for a certain dollar amount that's unsustainable ever in distribution, it hurts our game stores. And we have to make sure our game stores, as I like to meet you guys at the game shop and play, because my girl will always allow people at the house. So we have to watch out for that. I do think I'd love to see, you know, some of the smaller guys get a chance again that maybe aren't right now, some of these small idea projects, and that's something I'm focusing on personally. But I do think it's cool to have the big brands there, because you get to yell at them and tell them what's going on. I mean, the story I tell constantly about running the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles campaign is that have Bebop and Rocksteady in that campaign. They were not in the plans. They were going to be a later expansion, and the crowds freaked out, and like, they were right, we were wrong. Like, that's the end of it. There's no argument for me. They were right, we were wrong, and so we stayed up, lost a bunch of sleep, and got Bebop and Rocksteady in the game because they should have been. So it's fun that you can have that sway in the middle of a campaign to actually influence the product. I think Travis and Josh both hit on that the fans can go, oh, that looks terrible, or oh, you know, maybe you missed a colorblind friendly element, and someone out there is going to tell you, hey, you're missing colorblind friendly right now, and you can go, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't go to print. You know, so it's a useful thing, and big companies will continue to use it, as they should, because when you have a big brand and your customers love the heck out of it, they might know it better than your product guy if he's new. But yeah, let's help some small guys make ideas happen again. I hope that I can do that with Indiegogo especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that a lot of people feel was bad for Kickstarter in the previous is when they took away the gatekeeping and the review process. Before, it used to be that when somebody submitted a game, it would have to go through an internal review process before it was approved to launch. Is that does Indiegogo have that review process, or is that something that you plan on?
So Indie's interesting. I think this is a great thing that everyone in crowdfunding needs to look at right now, is because there's interesting metrics where people who've backed a certain number of campaigns like stop doing it because the percentage of non-delivery is too high. And so Indiegogo is certainly more aggressive in vetting out fraud products. They have, terms and services looking at things. I'm definitely now looking at gaming. I think the beautiful models on their hardware side, there were a bunch of crazy technology products that went out and failed and haven't delivered and pulled millions of dollars out of the economy. And so Indie actually has like a China team, manufacturing team, partnerships with huge players that ensure these products are getting made, they're real, and they ship. And I'm really hoping that that's kind of the vision for the games team, and that I'm just really the first person in the door. But in reality, factory partnerships, manufacturing partnerships, I know that I'm on the phone with fulfillment centers because I had a pain point there of making sure that, EU friendly, Canada friendly, all that kind of stuff. Like, I've made those mistakes. And so I'm calling partners now so that when you call and say, hey, Nate, I want to run a project, I can go, all right, who are you printing with? Who are you fulfilling with? Who are you doing these things with? And if you don't have those answers, I can say, wait, let's not go out this month. Let's push a quarter and let's answer all your questions first, so you're not doing it on the fly, because you're going to have a better experience and your game's going to ship and your backers are going to be happy. We're all going to win, even if it costs you a month and you're really excited. So definitely something we look at a lot and care about. And that's why you see some of the smaller projects not funding anymore, because people are only throwing their money at guaranteed shipper, huge people. So there's a way to change that.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say, John, do you want to talk a little bit about the 100 Things campaign a little bit? Describe that and how you got involved with that one.
Yeah, and I'm interested to hear Nate's thoughts on it too. In January, Kickstarter did a campaign where they asked their project creators to run a Make 100 campaign, where you offered at least one pledge level that was limited to just 100 items. And I decided to do something a little bit different than some of the other ones, where I was offering 100 copies of a game that I haven't designed yet, in that I'm going to include all the people who backed it in the design process over the next year, and it's going to end up just being 100 copies of a handmade game. They'll get, essentially I'll make everything in-house on foam core and whatnot. It won't go through a publisher, but it's going to be 100 copies of a unique game that doesn't exist anywhere else. But how do you feel about little initiatives like that in the industry?
I mean, I think that's cool. It's like, that's about passion, not money, right? And there's different, if you break down the different types of backers, we talk about that a lot internally, but there's some backers who just want to make a cool, unique thing happen and see that an idea come to life. And there's a class of backer that is targeting that Make 100 essentially. And then there's the backers who just want a good deal or whatever, or are early adopters on a technology. The Make 100 for a game was interesting. I considered backing your project, but I also wanted to let other people get a chance, and was also concerned because I know you have some IDW games and want to make sure they don't get held up.
Yeah.
So I had mixed feelings watching your Make 100. I hope the kids are doing a lot of that foam core cutting, is all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
But I do love that that's kind of the spirit of the old crowdfunding thing, of going back to that, of just make a cool, wacky thing for 100 people and call it a day and move on. And you got to make your thing. Not everyone has to make $1 million off every project. So maybe some of these people with the smaller ideas can utilize a game crafter or whatever, which excels at the 100 unit, but they could never go to China to get 1,000 backers. So, okay, find 100. Right. Cool. It's an exciting thing.
Awesome. Will you be pushing any kind of initiatives like that within your dojo? Trying to find creative things to draw creators and producers in?
Yeah, not exactly aping that, but certainly I'd like to shepherd in some smaller campaigns and make sure that somebody gets a highlight of like a passion project, or we're doing, I can't announce it, but I just got an email today that seriously said, like, look for people who just have passion and let's highlight them in the vague. Oh, that's hopefully vague enough, but that is something everybody cares about. I mean, I know that one of the big projects everybody in indie funded, Indiegogo, they hate me saying indie, was a cello album recently, a concept cello album. Got a bunch of money from employees inside the we fund a lot of projects. Like, I think we are all probably crowdfunding addicts worse than almost anyone. But yeah,
John is the worst.
Okay, all right.
I think we're like 450 projects backed. It's bad.
Super backers.
Wow.
Yeah,
but yeah, I definitely there's an initiative to find that person who's just putting the hours in after work at night and has no clue other than they love it. I met this guy at PAX South who got all this crazy good nautical art and a free common use, and he's built this deck builder. And it's like, I just want to help him because they're terrible crowdfunding projects. They don't make money, but I could probably help him get at least basically into the business. And he's got a beautiful, really cool project that he cares a lot about. So definitely looking for those kind of folks.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, I just noticed the time. I can't believe how fast it's gone, but I need to be, I'm leaving my house for New York in just over 10 hours. So,
oh, wow.
I'm going to have to wrap up because I still need to pack, eat, sleep. I'm realizing 10 hours is not a lot for all those things. But I just want to say thank you to all of you, both of you, for hanging out, chatting. Looking forward to seeing what future ventures for Indiegogo. And obviously, John, always a big fan of your games. Really psyched for Wasteland and Path hitting the market soon. People, you got to check out both games. They're amazing. I love them. I've got to play test both of them, and they will be easy purchases for me. Not only because of great design, but also great artists involved in those projects.
Hello, sir.
Great components. So definitely check those out. Nate's already doing other business. That's perfect. I'm
actually already talking to Travis now. We're talking business.
Oh, perfect.
Stacking business up.
Perfect.
Nate C. Murray on Twitter.
Yep. You know where to find him, folks. So with that, you can see, please, you can just call Nate up or call John or I up. Find us on Twitter. John, what's your Twitter?
At John Gilmore.
And I'm just at Daryl M. Andrews or Daryl Andrews. So you can find us there. We love chatting design and ideas. So if we can support you, playtest stuff. Both John and I have great circles of playtesters. So you're welcome if you're in the area to join some of our playtest nights. And if you're at a convention, we love playing games and hanging out. So please track us down. I'll be at the New York Toy Fair this weekend. So if you're there, give me a shout. It'd be great to see you. Until then, keep making great games. Hopefully we'll get to play some soon. Ciao.
Bye.